So tonight we'll delve into the world of VARA, a powerful digital communications mode for amateur radio. It is purpose-built to allow two-way data transfer between two stations to facilitate communication, even when the signal quality is very poor. We'll discuss why it is useful, how it works, and how to get started. This is an introduction to the mode and not meant to go into the deep, dark depths of setting it up, which will vary slightly with each radio setup. The VARA modem is a proprietary system developed by Jose Alberto Nieto Ross, or EA5HVK, and can be used as shareware. You guys remember shareware? This, by the way, is a photo from a campsite, the Great North Woods, where I was sending emails over radio from the middle of nowhere back home via stations in Manchester, New Hampshire, Nova Scotia. At the time it was raining and I was having trouble with the antenna, and the best I could get out of it was 30 meters at about 35 watts. It looks like I was on. I was able to pull weather reports and stuff over WinLink as well. So we'll get into that in a minute. So what can we do with it? Like the photo from the beginning, we'll discuss why it's useful and why we do care. VARA can be used in conjunction with a variety of applications, including WinLink RMS Express to send and receive email, text messages via cellular gateways, and to request information from news and weather resources. It can interface with APRS applications, like Pinpoint APRS and others, to send position and informational beacons, short messages to other operators, and again, cellular gateways. It can facilitate the use of VARA-C, which is a chat application, messenger style application built with keyboard to keyboard in mind, but also supports the ability to send photos and leave messages which can be relayed to other parties if the band happens to suddenly go short on us. It can relay off another station. VARA comes in multiple flavors. This conversation will be mostly about VARA HF, but it has several different versions of the modem, VARA FM, interfaces with the radio, either at 1200 baud or 9600 baud, and that's your interface connection between the computer and the radio, not necessarily the baud rate you're putting out of the radio. As I understand it, there are a handful of radios that can do 9600 baud, requiring a special pin on the port connector that you're using. My ISO 7800 in the truck can do it, but again, you have to have the special cable and the right equipment. I understand it's pretty fast. VARA FM can also be used as a gateway or a repeater node. VARA HF consists of multiple subcarriers, adjusts quantity and modulation based on conditions. It supports 500 hertz, 2300 hertz, and more recently, 2750 hertz bandwidth. VARA limits the bandwidth of each subcarrier to not exceed 92 bits per second. Documentation says 42, but I think it's out of date. To stay within the FCC's prior baud rate limits of 300 bauds per carrier. The satellite product, VARA-SAT, I don't know anybody that uses it locally, but it's built similarly to VARA HF with its ability to withstand unusual conditions, multiple carriers. Its primary function is to work with a geostationary satellite, for which I think there's only one, like over Africa right now. VARA modulation. VARA utilizes the OFDM, or orthogonal frequency division multiplexing modulation, in combination with multiple carrier modulation techniques, FSK, PSK, and QAM for data transmissions. I think Patrick says it's bad. What? It's making efficient use of the spectrum by allowing overlap, or OFDM, by dividing the channel into narrow subchannels. OFDM is more resistant to frequency fading than single carrier systems. Multiple subchannels allow recovery of lost symbols. This is kind of what it looks like as far as what OFDM is overlaid. Notice the multiple subcarriers that overlap. Sometimes multiple transmissions survive as well, which I think we're kind of seeing here a little bit. And this is the speed table. This breaks down each speed level, or the S level on the left, 1 through 17, which we'll see referred to later, and will be displayed in the modem application at the bottom. Note that symbol rate and resulting speed, symbol rate here, and the resulting speed or baud rate, which measures bits per second, is affected by both the number of carriers and the modulation. You see the different kinds of modulation they're using. Phase shift keying, frequency shift keying, I forget what QAM means. And not to worry, we're not gonna get too much in the weeds tonight, but this is basically how it's functioning and how it's working.
Are these gonna remain accurate with the changes that are likely coming with VARA since when, after they lifted the baud rate limit?
As far as I know, I believe might be in my later notes here, we typically use S1 through S11, I think, or 12. And it kind of cuts out at 32,300. And some of the, this is where we're working generally. Some of the tactical stations that can work out of the ham bands, like shares and such, they've been using the 2750 megahertz bandwidth, but that's when you start to see higher speeds as well. And I'm starting to see WinLink stations supporting 2750 in the ham bands. So I think it's already coming into play, and they're always improving the product. So we're going to see more and more as more and more research into making this run faster. Here's a comparison. It's what it looks like in practice. Our old faithful AX25 packet radio is a single carrier at the top. It takes some time switching between transmit and receive. Often requires a retransmit if data goes missing. And it leaves us at 300 baud HF or 1200 baud VHF. Sure, we can legally now go faster than that, but all the software and products that are available to us right now is still limited to those speeds. I think the AX25 sound modem using 7HO supports 9600 baud as well, but that's pretty much only used in VHF and UHF. Comparing the single carrier with the multi-carrier that you see in the VARA section here. And this is a couple of transmissions. See this is the S number, 5 to 6. With the baud rate, 270 bits, 3 bits per second. Remember, bits, there's 8 bits in a byte, 8 bytes in a character. So you divide that by 8 and see how many characters per second you can send. And this is the transmission that sends total. We're 2300 hertz bandwidth, and it's connected to our software that's transmitting the messaging via TCP. And this is a graph over time of the different speeds. As you can see, it kind of fluctuates. So compared to AX25, where it's slowly switching back and forth, it's an old mode from the 80s. VARA is very snappy, switching back and forth between the transmit and the receive stations, and it constantly adjusting the bandwidth over time, the amount of carriers and the different modulations. And it's able to keep that handshake very quickly. The resulting speed. Here we see the results of a WinLink exchange between me and a station in Nova Scotia, from my house in North Waterboro, Maine, 2300 hertz. This is probably kind of hard to read, but you'll see, should I have a yardstick or something? You see bytes, time, and then bytes per minute. And you can kind of start to see the first several connections, each time it says bytes, of about 1 to 1.7 kilobytes, which is about a small document essentially, in plain text. Takes around 10 seconds each. Band conditions fade slightly, VARA adjusts, and nearly 2K files are able to be received within about a minute. In this case, this is WinLink sending emails. And then the band starts to come back where you see 2.1 kilobytes, take about 54 seconds. Go up the top is from WinLink's website, winlink.org. WinLink is a network of amateur radio and authorized government stations that provide worldwide radio email using radio pathways where the internet is not present. Notable points. It's a good tool for when an immediate response isn't needed. You send an email, it sits there, person checks their email and they get it. Sure, we use it for MCOM stuff, for sending and receiving email when we know somebody's sitting at the other side. But generally, it's a send an email, poll. You know, when you go to receive the email, the other person has to poll for the email. It's good for long form messages, emails. You can leverage forms for MCOM, standardized forms that make sure you provide the right information that the other party will need. And you can send small photos, very, very compressed small photos. You can use it with an internet gateway to request information, news, weather. You can even pull websites with it. That's kind of what you're looking at here. And the very tiny text where I pulled the ARL bulletin. And you can see on the header at the top of the web page, it strips out all the HTML and gives you just the plain text. Not the prettiest, but it works when you're in a pinch. It's a great utility knife to connect with a variety of different software modems, and gives you access to a variety of information. With VARA, it uses about S1 to S12 speeds. I've been seeing in real world experience between 18 bits per second, which is terribly slow, to 3,000 bits per second. Again, on HF, you'd expect 300 baud, but it's multiple carriers, so it's able to pull that data faster. And again, we have gateways supporting 500, 2300, 2750 hertz in bandwidth. APRS, some of you may or may not be familiar with APRS on your radio, where it's sending the GPS location and maybe a little blurb of text. There's so much more that APRS can do than just that. Here you can kind of see, I set up a software application called Pinpoint APRS on my Windows computer back in about February. And I was able to receive directly or relayed to me stations from US, Canada, Europe, Nova Scotia. And APRS, it was running at a higher speed and a whole lot less stations were checking in. But the fellow that was experimenting APRS over VARA was able to work with the developer of VARA to lock in the speeds at a lower transmission speed, 18 to 41 BPS at 500 hertz. And you can see it takes a smidgen longer, but the APRS packets are so small, it's really negligible. And you can get a whole world of stations checking in with you. It's a great tactical tool, APRS is, that allows us to share our location, important locations that we pin, like meeting places or campsites. I can shift click on the map and say, this is a campsite, or we think that the lost person is in this general area, and it shares that with all the stations that are missing, that are listening. Generally, we use it for VHF, but we've expanded it to HF. You can send messages or connect with services monitoring the APRS Internet Gateway, APRS.phi. With gateways, we can send very short emails, and very, very short, 3 or 4 words, or cellular SMS messages. We can request a list of nearby repeaters, ask for an address for a point of interest, and get short weather reports with APRS. APRS clients are able to send their structured data through VARA as if it were another KISS TNC modem. A recent improvement to VARA was the allowance of multiple client connections to the request of the experimenters in the Pacific Northwest. You wanted to be able to connect multiple different APRS applications that can work different information, including a server on this thing. This is a VARA chat or VARA C. I apologize, I didn't start. I'm not sure if it's VARA, fellow in Sweden, I think, calls it VARA. So it's pronounced like, gift Jeff, figure how you will. So VARA C is not to be confused with VARA chat. There's 2 totally different programs. VARA chat is a very basic, AOL Instant Messenger kind of application provided by the guy that invented the modem to say, look, this is what you can do with it. This fellow here, this is invented and developed by a fellow named Irad Deutsch, 4Z1AC. He's the author of the VARA C application. Messages may be relayed via other operators to ensure delivery all over HF. You can beacon and broadcast messages just like APRS. It's a great combination of multiple applications. And again, beacons allow others to see who is around that may be able to relay your bulletin or message. You can CQ and get or see contacts and get signal reports just like FD8, and perform real-time keyboard to keyboard chat when being in touch with someone, you know, immediately and constantly is important to you. You can leave messages in others VARA chat client. Send an email button up here. So when you get a message, there's an envelope that shows up at the top, and it lists all the messages that have kind of been sent to you. If you happen to go away from the computer and you're beaconing and your status is away, someone can leave a message. And again, if you send a message to somebody and they disappear off the network, somebody else happens to see that. You're sending out hey, I have messages for such and such call sign. Somebody says, oh, I have visibility to him. And you can step, and it automatically makes the connection and establishes the flow of the message to the other person that you can't quite make a direct contact with. So it's great for casual conversations, and offers a lot of IMCOM tooling now. They just had a major update that puts it in a whole IMCOM mode where the beacons go from 15 minutes down to 5 minutes. You're if you see the red highlighted contact there, that's a person running in IMCOM mode to make them stand out, so the people working in a situation or an incident are able to quickly identify each other. There's some other features and things to the IMCOM mode that I won't get too deeply tonight for lack of time. And they've also introduced templates and forms. Templates are generally like, this is my station, this is my brag message, kind of like you get an FL Digi. I've got this antenna, this radio running this speed. I'm, 45 male and live in Maine kind of stuff. And it also has the forms like you'd submit a weather report with the relative humidity, the temperature, and the wind. ICS forms, the incident command system, where APRS is tracked with APRS.fi, that's the website. You can use plain old PSK reporter to see where you're getting out to, because these other stations, as well as you, are reporting the call signs and the signal reports that you're seeing to the PSK reporter website, given you have internet connectivity. The highlighted contact, by the way, is KA3NAM Joe Bennett in Texas. And also pictured as a signal check that I performed with a PA2HB, a fellow named Hemo Batches in the Netherlands. He had a signal report of negative 17 decibels. A conversation would definitely be possible, it just may be a little bit slow. And shortly after I took this picture, he went from a negative 17 up to a negative 10. So the band conditions were improving. All right, the band plans here. These are established calling frequencies for APRS, VARA, WinLink. And on the APRS notes, the fellows that were experimenting, we all kind of agreed on some generally quiet frequencies to operate on. Everything here in digital, of course, is upper sideband, whereas if you see AX25 packet, it really doesn't matter what sideband you use, because it's the way the protocol is designed, but generally people stick to lower sideband and report their frequencies with lower sideband. So there's not a whole lot of overlap. I believe 14103 lower sideband is used for HF packet-based APRS. You would see in the other screenshots, actually up here, 14105 megahertz on the VARA C side. That is the network 105 packet. There's bulletin boards up there, people doing keyboard to keyboard with AX25 packet. Again, they're lower sideband, we're upper sideband, very little overlap there. So again, gentlemen's agreement, as band plans generally go, that's where they decided to put the frequencies for VARA APRS, kind of on the fly. Did the coordination over Facebook Facebook group that we had going. We were meeting on the VARA frequency. In fact, the VARA guys were experimenting with APRS because they learned that they can interface their APS application with the VARA modem, just like they do the VARA application, chat application. And ever since IRAD introduced a text-based broadcast chat that uses the same protocols as the APRS client, they started getting fussy with us from playing with APRS on their VARA frequencies. So it goes. So we've moved away for the APRS stuff. And the only HF APRS that I've been able to find that's packet-based is on 30 meters. WinLink, it's got a list of 10 million miles long of stations and what frequencies they're listening to. And with that, you got the call sign, you got the frequency, and this is within the WinLink application itself. The mode or the bandwidth you see, you got what W1EO is doing 2750 hertz. These three stations do 500 hertz, and W1EW is also doing 2300 hertz. You'll see the same call sign and a couple of frequencies. They may have multiple radios, or they may have a radio and an application, a special WinLink gateway application that bounces between frequencies and bandwidths, and sometimes modes entirely. And IRAD with whoever come up with a band plan for the VARA and the application, just like FTA GSA call, it lists all these frequencies in the application, just like WinLink as well. So where the VARA mode has multiple carriers in a bandwidth. Likewise, the VARA chat client is using, again, the standard calling frequencies or watering hole frequencies. And within that, they are divvying up that the bandwidth around the center frequency into single channels or slots. It says that in the specs that within the frequencies bandwidth, there are multiple manual frequencies within which there are 750 hertz apart. These frequencies are called slots. With each slot, it has a unique ID. You start by making contact on the center frequency. Everybody starts on 14105 generally. Very few people are on different bands, like 40 meters. And then you tell the application that you'd like to switch to a slot with the other person. You find someone on the list that's beaconing or someone calling CQ, you can double click on their name, and it'll start making it'll start initiation of the handshake between your application and their application over the radio. And when you start talking, naturally they want you to move off the calling frequency because everybody else wants to call each other. And you can move to any one of the slots. You tell the other guy, hold on a minute, and you can, this is the CQ page, but there's a similar dial on the application itself that you can select one of the slots. There's a slot sniffer here that you can, your radio will temporarily QSY to that slot to see if you hear any chatter on that center frequency. And then you can go back and say, hey, let's move to slot 1. And you tell your program, I'm moving to slot 1. Your program will tell his program, we're moving to slot 1. The other person clicks I accept. You both move off. And then when you're done, your QSO is ended. Your program says, hey, let's move back to calling frequency. Likewise, when you call CQ, this is your CQ page. You're making a request for contact. The application will ask you what slot that you want to land on after you make your CQ call. It makes 2 CQ calls and then moves to that slot. Again, you got your slot sniffer. As long as you're holding onto it, it'll have the radio on that other frequency. Once you let go, you move back to the calling frequency so that you can call your CQ. Note too that there's a drop down there. It says CQ standard. If you click on that, you can call CQ BOTA, CQ SOTA for summits on the air, CQ IOTA for islands on the air, I think. Has a winter field day. It's got a pretty good long list of CQs that you can call. And that's baked into its protocol. This is a great way to find people, but what if you want the full speed of the full spread bandwidth that is available to you? You don't have to use the established calling frequencies. Instead, you can coordinate with a friend or schedule a contact for the full 2300 hertz that we're given by the FCC now, and make a high-speed contact. And I've seen people sharing really decent resolution images with each other during their chats, you know, QSL cards and such like that. Memes, you know, whatever the kids are sending. And it's pretty snappy, as I understand. I haven't tried it myself, but you just need to find a quiet frequency. Listen, of course, to make sure you're not going to step on somebody else. And you're off to the races. Acquiring these applications, again, the VARA modem, it's shareware. It's free for limited speed, unlimited use. You can use it all day long at 500 hertz at one of the lower slot speeds, or yeah. Or to get full speed out of it for $69. It's a little bit of a chunk of money, but I gotta tell you, this application, this modem is worth it. The VARA chat client is free, WinLink Express is free, and Pinpoint APRs is free. Now, maybe aside from WinLink RMS Express, who has a big political organization, 501c3 behind it, these other guys are very open to input and feedback. IRAD for VARA-C has a group of beta testers, alpha testers for his application, but they're constantly baking features. They've got several volunteers that translate their documentation to a variety of languages. Pinpoint APRS guy, he had posted that there was a new update to his software on a couple of the APRS groups on Facebook. I happened to find one to comment, say, hey, I busted the application. The map doesn't load anymore. I did something with my trackpad, it zoomed way out, there's a big red X on my screen now. Where do I go to like clear the cache or the database? And he told me where on my computer's hard drive to find it so I could delete it, just reset up the application, which really doesn't take that long. And I was back in business. I was able to thank him kind of personally on Facebook, it was cool. I didn't really touch upon it, but I was talking with Rick a little bit. It is a software modem. Essentially, it's using your sound card on your computer, just like FT8, GSA call, and UZ7HO sound modem. It's using your sound card to listen to the audio coming from the radio, and it's using the speaker interface, your headphone jack or whatever you're using, or USB sound cards to send the audio back to the radio. It's converting the digital ones and zeros in your computer to noise to transmit over the air. Like any old modem from the 90s or 80s that would be screaming robots over the telephone wire. Go next slide. Any questions?
Yeah, I got one that might be kind of stupid.
Sure. Most of it.
You notice, you said you could connect to the internet and all that stuff, but how susceptible is that system to spam?
The WinLink is it's particular in that it's blacklist by default, so it's not going to allow any internet address, internet email address to send you an email unless you emailed them first, or if you went ahead and added them to the allow list on winlink.org's website. So before I go camping, I will I'll go into my WinLink account on the website. I'll put my mother's email address in there, my boss's email address, in case I'm stranded up there and I can't get back to work, you know, at the end of my vacation, whatever. I'll put them all in there so that they can send me an email at winlink.org.
So if they get a hold of that, they can send you all kinds of that.
No other wireless, yeah, I think it'll last 30 days.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting clobbered through Spectrum with spam, honest to God. I can't get rid of it.
It works pretty good. I've never received any spam over the radio.
I've also never received any spam.
Because it's blocklist by default. You have to add an address to the allow list for it to even allow the email into the system. I could do a quick view of my remote computer. Go ahead.
So from your CQ page there, follows and create somebody great and you share doing that spot. Is that exclusive? You or he's looking at his display He sees the same crowd.
Essentially, yeah, so what happens is you're calling CQ, on the standard calling center frequency 1405, for instance. And you tell them you want to do slot 1, which is just below the center calling frequency. When you are done calling CQ, call CQ twice, and then you move off to slot 1. Somebody else at their radio has seen, there's a column on the application, all the people calling CQ and at what slot they're in. You double click on that person that you heard on the central calling frequency, it tells your radio to switch to slot 1, and then makes the connection established between the two of you. Likewise, if you connect to someone beaconing, you start off on the calling frequency and say, hey, we need to get on the calling frequency, let's move to slot 2. And you tell your program, now I'm going to move to slot 2. It sends a thing to his radio on the calling frequency and says, hey, he moved to slot 2, so I can follow him. They hit yes, he goes, and then the connection's reestablished. And it doesn't go to say that somebody else could be having a separate conversation and also switch to slot 2. You get a little bit of a collision there, but depending on band conditions, you both could conceivably have a conversation on the same frequency without affecting each other too badly.
So analogy, we were just in voice radio.
Mhm.
Third person.
Yep, someone could
So they
conceivably.
double click on it. They say,
Yep, like I showed the slot sniffer, you can QSY your connection to that other channel. I don't think it actually decodes it on the chat application. But you can hear the audio coming from that frequency if someone is already talking on there. You can also put your VARA modem software in a like a listening mode that'll decode the traffic that it's seeing and display that. So you could see what the other people are saying. It's not a private mode, none of ham radio is, but you have to work at it to get that information.
and could you do a one-to-many?
Mhm.
Just would
Yes.
require people.
You can use the broadcast function. It kind of again uses the APRS functionality of it, where it kind of broadcasts any lower speed but shorter messages to anybody that's listening. And you can broadcast to a specific call sign, but it'll show up for everybody because everyone's decoding the broadcasts, or it's broadcast to all. And it's going to be only the people listening to the center calling frequency that's decoding it. Sometimes they do nets that way.
Yeah.
They'll do a group chat, if you will. It's not as robust as the one-to-one connections because it's going into full VARA versus the broadcasting packets kind of out there without any kind of error correction. Any other questions?
Do you have any VARA FM gateways in Maine, in the Scarborough, Portland area?
I don't think so. I think there may be a VARA FM gateway, probably used for like WinLink or a bulletin board. Maybe the Lincoln County group, they're pretty technologically forward with a bunch of ideas. Around here, no. I've dabbled a little bit with our club station. I haven't set anything up permanently, but allegedly you can have the VARA FM soft modem running at the same time as the AX25 packet modems. And they'll both hear the same noise, but one's going to be able to decode while the other one's not. And your bulletin board program or your chat application, or whatever you're using, that's connected to both of those modems, either way will receive that connection. Now the VARA FM it's strictly point to point. It's one person to one person, whereas AX25 is supposed to be many to one, where you can have multiple connections to multiple people to the same place, if you will. But again, that's really slow.
I'll ask this question on behalf of everybody else in the room. What do you think is the learning curve for someone to start from scratch and get on the air with VARA HF?
Pretty low. It depends on the application you want to interface with it, because again, VARA itself is a mode, it's a modem. It's modulating and demodulating the noise to data for whatever application you're hooking up to it. WinLink is its own animal, as well as VeriChat, as well as APRS. Each one has a little bit of a different configuration to it to get it going, to get it talking to your radio with cat control. I don't personally find it too difficult, but I also have a EZU FT991 with a USB port at the back of it. Turns itself into a sound card when I plug it into my computer, and gives me a COM port to send the cat control commands to. Likewise, like Eric's ICOM 7300 is a USB radio. Something older where you have to use a single link, serial port on the back of an old radio, maybe a DIN connection with a PTT over the serial wire. Might be a little bit more complicated, but certainly doable without too much fuss. The VeriChat program specifically, a bunch of us had, well, we've seen a bit of a feature creep with the VeriChat program. The interface kept getting bigger and bigger, more and more buttons populating. Like, you guys need to have a simple mode for people to start off with just the basics. So they've introduced a basic mode, as well as the advanced mode, as well as an income mode now, that show you the features that you would generally need to at least get started in a basic mode, and if you're in income mode, to have access to forms and print emails and stuff like that. There's a whole long document of all the features that you can do. But it doesn't have to be complicated. Does that help?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Great questions. I was prepared if you guys needed to display the remote computer and show you a transmission or two, but I think we probably want to get on with our meeting and.
Yeah, we'll get through the business meeting.
Be done with it later. Okay.
People wanna.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Final slide is just thank you with a peach on it.
Appreciate it.